Without further ado, we'll go ahead and introduce our speakers today. We have Marquise Jackson, who's the Regional Director for the San Diego and Imperial SBDC and has held the position since 2015. He has been a member of the San Diego and Imperial SBDC network since 2012, and before that, he's transformed startups as technologies-focused SBDC service center in the Inland Empire. We also have Daniel, and I actually just pulled up your LinkedIn account. So he's the Associate Regional Director of the San Diego Imperial SBDC Network, program management for the annual SBA grants. That includes the City of San Diego grants and other local matching funds over $6 million annually. His responsibilities includes oversight of the 5 SBDC centers, including program and fiscal compliance, contract development and management, grant writing, and management. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay. So welcome everybody. I was talking without first taking my self off mute. So Danny and I have prepared a really good presentation for you all. We like to go back and forth, and our joke in the office is we share a brain. So we'll usually jump in and talk about information, one after another. So it'll be dynamic presentation. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about what we do. So the Small Business Development Center, we're funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration, but we also receive funds here in California from the state of California and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. We're also funded by local entities that cherish small business support here in San Diego, whether it be the city, the county, other institutions like banks. And so what the SBDC does is we provide expert level one-on-one business advising at no cost to the end user. We hire people who either are currently or have been business owners, so they understand the challenges that you all deal with. They've laughed, they've cried, they've had successes and failures, and they sit down and coach you through to success and what you want to achieve. And basically, we provide that expertise in a number of different categories, whether it be helping you get access to capital, a business continuity or business planning, operations, bookkeeping, marketing. Basically, we have expertise in many facets of business, and we can sit down with you and coach you through, whatever challenges you're having. And we also provide a lot of training or workshops just like this one. Sometimes it's easier to disseminate information to a mass of people as opposed to, one-on-one. Here in San Diego, we have multiple service locations throughout San Diego in both Imperial County, about 10 different locations out of 8 primary locations. And then throughout the state, we have a number of service centers as well. So if you're not located in San Diego, we're still happy to help you, but there are local SBDCs all throughout the state of California and the United States. So basically what's going on, right? This coronavirus, COVID-19, has caused some harm, to businesses not being able to service customers like we previously were due to, social distancing rules and all the health rules that has came out. So in times like this, SBA steps up and, offers funding in times of disaster. This disaster is like no other that we've ever seen, being that it's a national disaster and it's not a fire, earthquake, or something like that, or tornado that has previously happened. So we'll be covering today some of the SBA products that are out there, like the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. You'll hear us refer to it as that, or either EIDL, which is the acronym, or the Paycheck Protection Plan that just emerged last Friday. But there's also some resources for, to help your staff transition, whether you're furloughing them or unemployment. There's some sales tax deferments, here in California. Our tax deadlines have been moved to July 15th. But there's also other products like the loan guarantee program that has been enhanced because of this disaster to a 95% coverage. And local lenders here in San Diego, and as well as the city and the county, are stepping up as well, so we can provide information on kind of what's out there today. So Part of what we're asking people to do, what can you do right now before you even fill out the application to access any capital? Go ahead and contact your current creditors, right, and ask them for deferral. So all the banks have been put on notice that they are to work with their borrowers to defer loans. And they've been given guidance by the government to do so. So, banks are really friendly right now and working with you to defer or restructure your loans. You can take advantage of the payroll tax deferral or the state tax deferral. And so, just quick point, I see people raising their hand, and just put questions in the chat box. And then when we get to a point, we'll definitely answer some questions. And you can also begin to plan for the July 15th income tax deadline, or work with your landlord to discuss rent deferral or other things that you could use to help your business. It'll help you with putting cash out there. And so so to the person who made this comment, I do see it. We are based in Southern California, but this applies. The federal programs, they definitely apply to the whole U.S. We're just referencing some local stuff that our county here in San Diego is doing, but the federal programs we will cover will be applicable to you in Arizona. So as far as financials, there is an SBDC in Cal. Oh, there you go, Danny. Thank you for that. As far as financials, what we're asking you to do to get prepared to access some of this capital is go ahead and collect your 2019 and prior year financials. You want to have all that information available so that you're able, when you go to apply for loans, you have all of this, and it doesn't take additional time kind of gathering this information. But make sure you have your profit and loss statements, your sales history by month, and your most recently completed tax returns. And then go ahead and collect your 2020 financials to date, preferably notated by a month. That way we can see the trends that are impacting your business and figure out, together with you, or help you figure out how, what product you need to apply for and how best to access it. One of the things that's important right now is documenting the negative impact that COVID-19 has had on your business. So there's a cause and effect relationship. So if you can show how COVID has impacted your revenue, that leaves a gap in your ability to pay for your expenses, or service any debt you have, making any loan payments. That cause and effect relationship is definitely needed. And then the last thing we're going ahead and advising is looking at projecting your financial impact in 2020 as compared to 2019, so that you're able to make the case. And then we'll cover this a little bit later when we talk about PPP, but really getting a handle around your monthly payroll expenditures.
There we go. I forgot to take myself off mute too. So the first one is, and that's been out since the beginning, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and otherwise known as the EIDL or the EIDL. And this is one that was already in statute, but it was plussed up a little bit with the stimulus package, and also that they've simplified a lot of the application process. So the number one thing to kind of understand first is what the loan terms are. And the maximum that an entity or a business may be eligible for is up to $2 million. The SBA will work with you, and after you apply, they'll be able to indicate how much you are eligible to receive. In that this is a loan, the interest rates for this are 3.75% for small businesses. Nonprofits are also eligible for this at a lower rate. And then the terms are up to 30 years. It's important to say up to, because we've seen a couple of these offers that have come in at 10 years or 15 years, and that's primarily for ones that are lower dollar amounts. The big thing to understand is what these loans are used for. So these are working capital loans. They're not loans to be able to go and buy another business, to expand your business, or anything like that. It's to pay the existing expenses, your fixed overhead that you have. And this would be everything from, of course, what you're having to pay for your facility, equipment rentals, but it also includes like the vendors that you already owe money to, and you can continue to pay that. So it's just to pay the bills that already are there, to basically try and get you to to have your business survive. And then once things are able to come back to some degree of normalcy, for you to be able to start operating again. Really, it's intended to be a bridge loan for all those operating expenses. So the other concept of the term is whether or not collateral is required. We do know for sure that any loan for this that's under $25,000 does not require any collateral. And so and loans above there, the SBA probably will ask for some collateral. What will happen is after you complete the simplified application, which we're going to touch a little bit on, not go through in detail, but we will touch on it, is that you'll be contacted. You'll kind of go over, they'll ask for some additional information, then you'll be able to, then they'll come back and give you an offer, and at that point they'll be discussing whether or not collateral is required. And so you don't have to offer collateral. That would obviously adjust your loan amount, but just know that it's not a requirement for certainly that's under anything under $25,000. The other thing that's important to understand is that with any other SBA loan, including the one we're going to talk about here in a second, which is the triple P, is the EIDL is a loan directly from the federal government. That's the most important distinction. So you don't go to your bank, you don't go to another lender, or anything like this. You go directly to this website that is COVID-19relief.sba.gov. COVID-19relief.sba.gov. And so that's something that's very important for you to kind of do, so that, because also what's important with that is there is no cost to apply. Programs like the Small Business Development Center or other SBA resource partners like the Women's Business Centers or SCORE, we're all here to help you. We're funded to be able to help you walk through and answer your questions on how to be able to apply. But the reality is it's quite simple. You just need to have some basic information, which I'll talk about here in a second. And the reason I want to emphasize there's no cost to apply is that there are a lot of people out there saying they could be getting a bunch of emails, hey, you pay me, I'll help you get money from the federal government, things like this. Don't do that. Absolutely do not do that. Unless it is an existing trusted advisor that is helping you apply. Like, let's say, for example, it's your CPA that you've had for years. They're like, hey, as part of my retainer, I can help you get this application in. That's the sort of situation you want to be able to go with, but only go with folks that are key to, that are trusted. So I just wanted to emphasize that point because we know that there's a lot of stuff going on out there. Also, after you apply, if you get asked for additional information, make sure that person is using an SBA.gov email. That way you're not going to fall into any particular traps with it otherwise too. So after you go to that COVID-19 relief website, this is what the first page will bring up. And after that, there's just some very basic steps. The first ones are disclosures. Pretty much that's eligibility questions. You're going to go there. The first two are pretty much everything that's going to be business. Pretty much that you click the first one if you're incorporated with an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, or other thing. And if not, you're a sole proprietor or other type of operation like that, you click the second button. And so you're pretty much one of those two. And so that's what you're able to do with that. Then there's some other basic eligibility questions. The second page is the business information. So the list of things that you're going to want to make sure you have your employer ID number. That's the tax ID number you got from the IRS. You're going to want to make sure you know the date the business started, the date you took over as an owner. Oftentimes that's going to be the same date. And then the key information you're going to need is the following. You're going to need your gross revenue. In other words, your total sales from February 1st, 2019 through January 31st, 2020, your total gross sales. Then alongside that, you also need what the total cost of goods sold. So that's the wholesale cost. So let's say, for example, I'm a reseller or a retailer of books. So the cost of the books that I sold during that same time period would go into that piece of information. So those are the two things. Remember, it's the dates February 1st, 2019 through January 31st, 2020. And that's kind of the critical information. After that, on the business owner information, you need to make sure you have all the information for all of the owners. And so even those that are owned under 20%. And included in that is the owner's social security number, their mobile phone, their email, their residential address, even their place of birth, because those are questions that are being asked. So if you don't have that readily available for the entire ownership group, make sure you get that before you complete this information. Then the next page, the additional information. Again, some additional kind of compliance questions, but this is where you check the box saying, I want the up to $10,000 advance. This is the loan that probably you've all heard of. You can get up to $10,000 per business in an advance from the federal government. This is where you complete that. If you completed an application before it was the simplified one, to get that advance, you do need to complete this again. You've already completed this once, you don't need to go complete it again. And so the operative thing we're hearing, though, is it is up to $10,000. Not everyone's receiving $10,000. We don't know what that formula is for that, but just we want to make sure you understand that it's an up to amount. So that way, when all of a sudden, say $7,000 shows up in your account, you're like, where's my other $3,000? That's why. So we just want to make sure you understand that. Then the last page is the summary. Double check. Your information needs to be 100% accurate. Applications are kicked back primarily for inaccuracies. And so review that summary, make sure you have everything correct, and you can certainly use the SBDC to help you. If not us here in San Diego, others in Southern California or in Arizona are all being able to provide those services. And so that's really the main thing for the economic injury disaster loan. We do recommend that you apply for this, at least to get the up to $10,000 advance, and then have those other operating expenses that you're able to apply for.
So the Paycheck Protection Plan or program, it was just made active this past Friday, so it's all new. So I'll talk through it, but I just want you all to understand that it's new and it's evolving. So Danny explained the EIDL program, which was direct from SBA. The PPP program goes direct through your lender and not the SBA. So one of the things that we've been advised to do from banks and other clients that we've been talking to is go to your lender first, right? There is no portal that exists like the EIDL program, but go to your lender and talk with them and ask if they're participating in the PPP program and what's the process to file an application through that institution. If your lender isn't participating, we've included a link here that you can use to find participating lenders in the Paycheck Protection program. It's so new, but as it rolls out and becomes more available, there'll be additional banks and lenders who do participate and start to open it up to more. So let's talk a little bit about eligibility. So you're eligible to apply for the PPP program if you are a small business or a nonprofit. So when Danny was explaining the EIDL, the EIDL program was available to a broader range of nonprofits. The PPP program is only available to 501c3s, and whether you're a small business or a C3, you have to be in operation prior to Feb 15th when the COVID really started, and you have had to pay employees or pay yourself, as the owner of the business. So sole proprietors are also eligible for the PPP loan, or independent contractors as well if you were in operation before Feb 15th. And so the way that this structure, the PPP program will basically go through lenders who, primarily through lenders who are approved to be in the 7A program. But I think as they grow and get the program out there, starting to open up and welcome additional lenders. So I'll talk a little bit about, some more details about it. So the Paycheck Protection Program will be available through June 30th, right? The loan amounts cannot exceed $10 million. So it's pretty good money if you are a larger size small businesses. So the way loans are calculated is it's based on your average monthly payroll. So basically that payroll can be fully loaded, right? It includes your taxes, your insurance, your group health, your retirement. The only exception, or one of the exceptions, is that payroll in excess of $100,000 per employee is excluded. So you'll be able to count payroll up to $100,000 per employee. So the way that they're asking you to calculate this is look back at your 2019 payroll, and you can add in January as well. So your average monthly payroll for all of 2019 plus January divided by 13 will give you your average monthly payroll number. When you multiply that times 2.5, that becomes your loan size. So one of the things that is really great about this loan is that it's forgivable, right? So if you apply for this loan and you get approved, and you use this to cover payroll costs for your employees, it'll be totally forgivable. And the way that that is structured is you can use it to cover, you can use 75% of the loan proceeds to cover payroll costs, and 25% of the proceeds to cover stuff like rent, utilities, mortgage interest. If you do that, it will be 100% fully forgivable. And the key is you could apply for both, but not use both for the same purpose. So there are some very good programs, hanging out there for businesses. And if you approach it in the right way, you are to be able to, get some forgivable funding and, funding from EIDL to kind of help your business flow through the situation. So just a little bit more. You, like I was saying before, you want to collect your payroll records from Jan 19, through 2020. Any wages paid, including commissions and cash tips, payroll taxes, any payment that you've made, for your employees or yourself for vacation, sick, medical, family leave, and your employer portion of the group health and retirement plans, not to exceed $100,000, per employee. And so one of the things that's important for business owners is this can include compensation for self-employment or a sole proprietor. Now, if you're paying independent contractors, they will have to apply for their own PPP and will not be covered under your application. Some other exclusions is, for employees whose principal residence is outside the U.S., wouldn't be eligible. And like I said before a couple times, any compensation in excess of $100,000 per year would have to be excluded from applying for this program. So here's an example. I'm getting closer to the screen of some payroll reports. We can definitely, share this information with you. And like Danny was saying, SBDC advisors will be able to help you kind of walk through this process. But as you can see, this is detailed payroll information that you need to have in hand when you're applying for this loan. Right. So finally, here's the application, a sample application for the PPP that has been put out by the government. Each bank is using, its own process, but here's the information that they're going to collect when you're applying for the PPP. So, you're going to have to go ahead and check the list to make sure, you're a sole prop, your partnership, all that stuff. Make sure you have any identifiable information for your business. As Danny referenced earlier, please ensure that you have your EIN available. And then, like we were saying before, you can kind of see the calculation here. The way that they're going to determine your loan amount, your average monthly payroll times 2.5 will equal the amount of EDI of PPP that you will be eligible for. And then you'll have to state the use of your loan. Like I said, payroll, any rent or mortgage interest and utilities is totally forgivable. So those are the costs that you want to use the PPP to cover, so that you're forgiven, for this capital for your business, right? And then finally, just some other pieces of the application. You're going to have to list each owner of your business that has a 20% or more stake in the company, just like any other loan application. They definitely want to know all the principles of the business, and then it's pretty straightforward from there. Just some questions that you're going to have to ask around whether you've been suspended or debarred, committed any crimes, and it's straightforward questions just like that. So the application should be able to be completed very simply. And again, if you need some help, SBDC is here. And then you'll have to make some certifications. And basically, the government is looking forward to getting this money to you as soon as they can. So you're gonna have to make factual statements when you're applying for these different loans that are asking you to provide certifications that the information here is factual, and you haven't been debarred, and you aren't currently in bankruptcy, or have recently committed a felony crime.
Yeah, so again, like Marquise was saying, and what I was saying before, is go ahead and use the SBDC. We're here to be able to help you review this, answer kind of the clarifying questions that you may have, like what we're doing here with the webinar. But what we have is teams of advisors, of course, just here in San Diego, but also our fellow networks in other parts of Southern California and in Arizona. And so, in good times, we're always here for small business. In crisis times, we're also here for small businesses to be able to do it. So I'm going to kind of blow through a couple of these questions that we have. I opened up the Q&A, and I know that there's a couple in the chat as well. So the first one was about the payroll expense deferral. So that's the payroll tax deferral. If you're in California, you apply for that with the Economic Development Department, in Employment Development Department, the EDD. And so that's who is the processor for the payroll taxes. And so they would have a process for that. The next question, I got a couple of those on the disaster loan assistance. Is there a way to check application status? The answer to that is, unfortunately, there is not a way to check. They've received applications in the millions, and with the simplified process, they put that together very, very, very quickly. And so at this point, they're not able to particularly provide a status. So the best thing to do is wait. But the other component is if you've checked the box for the advance, we're hearing that those are starting to go out today. The best place to look for that is your bank account and see if you've received a deposit from the U.S. Treasury or the SBA. Ajay asked a question, can you apply for both of the loans? The answer is yes. But as Marquise was explaining, you cannot use them for the same purpose. So for example, obviously, you're going to want to use the Paycheck Protection Plan since it's forgivable, and you're going to want to use that money first. And the EIDL is a loan, and you have to pay that back, so you're going to want to use that second. So the forgivable portion, again, on the triple P it has to be at least 75% for payroll expenses. So you're going to want to make sure payroll is completely paid. 8 weeks of payroll is paid with your PPP. Then your rent and your utilities or your mortgage interest on the facility that you own. Pay that first and get that forgiven. Then you're able to use EIDL for expenses that do not fit within PPP, such as, say, if you have an equipment lease or you have your general liability insurance or other expenses like that. So that's something you're going to want to take a look at. Jim asked, are corporations and LLCs not eligible? No, they're 100% eligible. So you saw in the form that's where you would check the particular box for that. So Jim also asked about applying for both, answered that. So so the next one is on a detailed definition of what qualifies as payroll. Marquise went into that. So what payroll is, again, I'll reiterate kind of what he said. I'm actually going to go back to that slide. So let's see here. So it's right there. So it's the wages paid, including commissions, cash tips, payroll taxes, payment for vacation, sick, medical, or family leave, and then the employer portion of group health and retirement. So that's what you would be able to do. The last question here I see in the Q&A, then we'll go to the chat questions, and I'll let Marquise take those ones, is the PPP application. If you check the boxes for written utilities and you've applied for EIDL for written utilities, the client should only check the payroll box so that is forgivable. No, still check those boxes. Keep your options open. Once you get both of these loans in hand, then you have to monitor the use of those funds. And that's what's important. And so, like I was saying before, use the PPP first for all of its allowable expenses. And so that way, because that's purely forgiven, then that once that either A runs out or B or a combination therein, you would be able to then use the EIDL money for that. So the answer is kind of a little bit of both. So one last one here. When we apply, they don't ask for bank details. So in a simplified application, if you did your EIDL application prior to last Sunday, what was that, March 29th, you will need to go back and do the simplified application to get your advance. If you did the big paper forms and you uploaded them, that will not include the particular advance. All right, so Marquise, you want to take some in the chat box?
Absolutely. Right. So just kind of looking through, you did a good job of answering. I did see this question come through. We will be working with the BBB to get this information to you all. So somebody asked, will it be available? So yes, we're gonna provide this information over to the BBB, and they definitely can get it out to everybody who's attended this webinar and anybody else who needs it. They're recording it, so it'll also be, I'm assuming, available. And then again, I'll just say one more time, if visit your SBDC, totally free. In fact, pay for by our tax dollars. So if when you get the information, you have additional questions, please feel free to just reach out to SBDC and somebody will be there to help you. The next question was, what is EIDL? So we're using the acronym, but EIDL stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So that's the name of the program that we've been talking about. And so Alex Berg asks, can I apply through a lender that I have a business relationship with for another entity for my main business? So I would say work with the lender who services your main business first, right? If that lender is unable to provide you with services, Danny provided in a chat box a search link that you can use to find lenders enrolled in the PPP program. But you want to leverage people that you have an existing business relationship with. We've heard from a lot of lenders and small businesses that they're really overwhelmed with requests, so they're actually asking people. They only want to take care of their direct customers, and it's understandable because there's just been thousands and thousands of requests per day, coming into these lenders. So Michelle asked, Chase is basically telling her, my bank Chase is telling me that all is on hold until the government gives directions on how to implement. Has this been provided yet by the government? So again, this program was just made live on Friday. So they're going back and forth, providing updates to lenders and also keeping us in the loop. So my advice in this situation, Michael, would be to work with Chase to ask them when they anticipate making their portal available. I know a lot of lenders have been coming online. Don't worry about rushing to this money. There's a lot of money in this bucket, and it's going to be available. So what we've been told, they've not ran out of money. So just try to work with Chase to figure out when their application is going to be available. And if you get the feeling that it's not going to be available anytime soon, please use that link that Danny put out in the chat box to try to find a local lender that you can work with. So I think this is a good comment from Joseph Gronenberg, who says he's checked with no less than 20 lenders, and their comment is they're only working with established customers, and that's why we're telling people to go ahead and work with your banking institution, because they only want to work with banks. So a question from Martin Bax is, do sole proprietors use their gross adjusted income to calculate the loan amount? Do sole proprietors use basically their AGI? What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
So I think, so one thing we were looking at and talking to someone who, a potential lender today about this is, so yes. So after you complete your Schedule C, what that AGI was, so would have been, so like as though you're pre-doing your 2019 taxes, even though they're not due, that would be it. And then you take that AGI, you divide that by 12 to come up with what it would be for your income. And then if that's in excess of $100,000 per year, you can only use, of course, the first $8,333 per month. So yes. So an answer, the short answer is yes. But using that particular different way to calculate it. That's the information we're getting from the SBA today. But again, like Chase even was referring to, we're continuing to get updated information from the rules that came out on Friday.
Oh. So to Susan, who asked if you applied, I'm assuming you're speaking of the EIDL program. Are you still eligible? Absolutely, you are eligible. If you applied, like Danny was saying, before they made the switch to the new portal, and you want to get access to the advance, you will have to go in and resubmit an application and make sure you tick the box off that you want to receive an advance. We've been advised that this won't change your place in line, so it won't basically drop you down to be last in line. You'll still retain your original spot in line. And this process, the folks at SBA are getting through these as quickly as they can. They've been saying, especially on the EIDL program, a 2 to 3 week turnaround. So we're also preaching patience. This is a national situation, so they're getting more applications than they ever have in their entire history. Just have a little patience. You should hear something from SBA if they have any additional questions for you, or if they call to discuss details on a loan offer with you. And so Christina asked, Danny answered this question. I've said it multiple times. That businesses who want to apply for the PPP and their financial institution is no longer accepting applications. We shared the link in the chat. You could definitely send people to do a search on that link. And SBA is actively trying to onboard additional lenders into the program. Please don't, go visit any companies that aren't reputable. This should be going through a larger commercial banks, or I think they're also onboarding other credit unions and neighborhood banks, but only go to trusted resources. I really I'm raising the alarm about using fintech companies. And then you have a couple more questions. Make sure I scroll to the right.
Here, I'll take a couple here.
Okay.
So Deb asks about if you've submitted the EIDL app, you need to modify, similar to what Marquise was saying. You just kind of need to wait. And so for them to contact, if you've submitted it prior to March 30th, and you did it with kind of the large forms, you can certainly go and do the simplified application to request your $10,000 advance. So then Faustina is able to send one that was emailed. So Jim's an owner of an LLC in California. He's the only employee. So similar to the sole proprietor type of information is if you are taking a wage, you are on payroll. If you're taking an owner draw that you can demonstrate as taxable income to you, then that's what you would be able to claim. So it's any taxable income that comes from the business in the form of a wage, commission, or cash tips or owner draw that's demonstrable. So I'm the owner of this LLC and I write myself a check once a month, once a quarter to pay for my expenses, and I claim that on my personal taxes as income, then yes, that's what would count as a particular wage for that. So then again, same thing. Again, I already answered this one. If you need to modify your application. And then Jeff asked about S corps, if that's sufficient to secure a loan. Well, again, it's not just what your legal structure is. Of course, S corps are perfectly legitimate, but what you would need to be demonstrating. So for the PPP, the calculation again is based on the payroll, 2.5 months of the total payroll. That's what you would be able to do. And so that was one that you do not have to secure at all. And if you are applying for the EIDL, up to $25,000 is you can certainly do with that's not collateralized. So that's what they would be able to do. So let's see, under PPP, independent contractors have to apply for themselves. What about full-time independent contractors? Same thing. Is the PPP is for the owner of the company, his or her pay in the form of a draw or a wage, and then all wages, commissions, and cash tips paid to employees. And so they have to do that. So you can't pay for an independent contract. You can't pay any 1099 people out of your PPP. Only W-2 employees or yourself as the owner. So that's what it is. And then can my company use their wages in calculation for the loan? Again, 1099 is not a wage. A wage is something that's a W-2 income paid per this definition. And so it's not, if they're 1099, it's a wage. It's more like a contract paid amount. And so they'd have to get their own PPP loan to support themselves. So I think that's what we got in the chat box. I think there might be some in the Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I see Dax asked, what if you haven't done payroll in the last 2 years and just took commission as income? Again, commission is and considered a wage for that. And so you can certainly be able to do that. So again, look at what your taxable income was under your, that you would file for 2019 and divide that by 12. And that would be what you'd be able to apply for that. And then for Paula asked, it states that the advance does not need to be repaid under any circumstance. That is correct. So what you receive as an advance, so what gets deposited in your bank account from this advance on the EIDL before you get the loan offer, that does not need to be repaid. That is correct. So be that $1,000, be that $7,000, or be that $10,000. All right. I think we got them all.
Yeah.
So again, we thank you for the opportunity to do this. My name again is Danny Fitzgerald. We're both, Marquise and I, are with the San Diego and Imperial Small Business Development Center. If you're not in our territory, the San Diego or Imperial counties in Southern California, you can go to americassbdc.org, put that also in the chat box, and click find my SBDC, put in your zip code, and you'll find one that's close to you. Best way to reach them is via email or the website. Don't call them. No one's in the offices, as we all know. Marquise?
No. Hey, thanks all. I do see some additional questions that came through, but I'll we'll answer those here in a second, and I'll just repeat what Danny is saying. Please go visit your local center. They're there to help, and we really appreciate you all spending time and trying to get information. So I did see, I think, another question, just one more come through, and it looks like from Joseph. Says, I had surgery last year, income dropped 5x. Can I use the 5-year average for income? They're basically calculating your 2019 payroll information, so you won't be able to use a 5-year average. So that's
All right.
it. Well,
That's
thank
it.
you all.
Thanks, Faustine.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Once again, this recorded webinar will be posted on events.bbcommunity.org in a day or two. Thank you again to both Marquise and Daniel for taking time out of your busy day. It's a lot of information, so I hope we were able to help you navigate through some of the questions that you have and put more ease. But everyone, please stay safe out there and take care.